Hey, mob. Just wanted to share some info with you just about the Western Australian criminal justice system. There's a lot of, like media coverage out there and a lot of stuff that goes on, and basically there's a lot of stuff that the media don't tell the public what's going on within the prison systems. And so basically what I wanted to do was just give you some information. So at the moment, as of last week, 7th of October, or the week before, we had 4,546 prisoners in custody, and of that 4,546, there's currently around 37% of those are Aboriginal. Considering that we only make up 3% of the state in Western Australia, I find that disgusting that 38% of our offenders in prisons are Aboriginal. So, and to say that there's no institutionalised racism, I think the figures speak for themselves. And I don't think that anyone from our Attorney General Christian Porter to, our Premier Colin Barnett, can dispute the figures, because they're the ones who are always requesting statistics and stuff like that in the first place. Basically at the moment we've got about 171 juveniles in custody, and of that 171 there's about I think 78% of our Aboriginal kids, and like I said before, considering that we make up 3% of the population, 78% of children in custody being Aboriginal, I mean, that's just disgusting. And what are the Department of Child Protection doing if so many young people are getting locked up? They're obviously not doing their job properly. And when it comes to the Department of Child Protection, basically all they're good for is removing children without providing the family and the parents with the right, support and services to be able to move on from whatever issue, they need to work through at that time in their lives. And it's basically the same for our prisons. At Deaths in Custody, we've had a number of calls, over the last month and all year. Like, we've received so many calls, from families and prisoners concerned for their well-being while in custody. And a lot of yous might not know, and as taxpayers, within the Department of Corrective Services, there is a health fund. So basically what this health fund does is they provide all health services for prisoners that are in custody. Now, what I don't understand is, if we're talking about funding, and Christian Porter is always talking about the lack of funding, why are they doubling up on medical services? The federal government already have the health program in place, which we use, called Medicare. So why are offenders being stripped of Medicare just because they've been punished with a custodial sentence? You know what I mean? If they could just keep using Medicare while they're in jail, then all that money in the Department of Corrective Services Health Fund can go towards other things, like actually providing programs to our men and women and children in prison. We have so many people being refused parole from our devil chairperson on the parole board over here, Narelle Johnson. Basically, people are being refused parole, and the word is, what is parole? Because it's virtually non-existent anymore. Parole is a very important mechanism for our people, because when you're on parole, you receive access to services that you don't receive if you're not on parole. And Christian Porter's quick to say the prison numbers are declining. The only reason that the prison numbers are declining is because everyone who's been rejected parole has reached the end of their sentence and they're just getting out. It's not because criminal activity has gone down or because effective services are being supplied by the Department of Corrective Services or the Department of the Attorney General. You know what I mean? It is ridiculous. We've got people in there that have done every single program that is available to them, and they've still been refused parole. I mean, what's the point? A lot of the boys are becoming disheartened, and the women too. Because they want to do programs, they want to do what they have to do, fulfill their obligations to be eligible. But then, you've got a chairperson there who's a victim of crime herself, might I say, so that's a conflict of interest in my opinion, and I think it needs further investigation. But anyway, she is sitting there and refusing all these people parole, so they're getting out without the access to services that they would get otherwise. It's like, well, why have it there? There is not enough services available for offenders to move on. And this is where justice reinvestment could be a huge step forward for our West Australian government. Now, instead of locking people up, and it costs $100,000 a year to put people in custody. Now, this is an adult prisoner. Juveniles, it is $250,000 a year. Now, it was like I read in an article a few months ago, you could go and spend a night, you know, in the Sheraton. You could go and spend all year in the Sheraton, you know, with a room, and it would cost you less than what it costs to keep an offender in custody. I mean, what's going on, people? You know, this is ridiculous. Now, when it comes to the juveniles, you know, they really need to move themselves, and they really need to do something about this now, because this is getting ridiculous. I'm sick of seeing our young people being harassed. I'm sick of seeing a lack of programs. I'm sick of seeing nothing being done for our people. Now, justice reinvestment needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. And instead of putting people in custody, you know, it costs around $13,000 to $15,000 to rehabilitate someone. Now, don't you think that's a better option than jail? You know, if people want to turn their lives around, then what they've got to do is provide them, you know, with proper services. They need to provide them with adequate services that are going to help them get on the road to recovery. All right, well, I've got to go. I've got a phone call, peoples, but I'll catch us all later.